I thought baby.
He was here.
Okay. We on time? Okay, we'll open this meeting of the Tourism and Occupancy Tax Committee. First item of business, approve the minutes of the May 13th meeting. Somebody want to make that motion? Motion by Supervisor Wild. Do we have a second?
Second.
Nobody? Do we have enough?
Second.
Oh, second by Supervisor Bramer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, I guess we gotta wait for Merlino. Is he here? I just gave it. Okay, and Beatty, oh, he's back. Okay, good. All right. First item of business, resolution request authorized agreement with BBG&G Advertising for design, hosting, and production services for website visitlakegeorge.com in the amount of $80,655. As you see, the rationales, BBG&G submitted the best value response at the lowest cost. Any discussion on this? Can I have a motion to get it to the floor? Motion by Supervisor Merlino, second by Supervisor Wild. Any further discussion? Motion to approve the agreement. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. All right. Okay. First, next is a resolution request amend the county budget amount of $300,000 to increase the appropriations from Occupancy Tax Reserve to Occupancy Tax budget. And rationale, the 2020 Occupancy Tax collections were higher than posted based on the deficit reduction plan. And I'll ask Administrator Moore, you want to give a quick comment on this?
Sure. What we did is we, and there's a second budget amendment request as item 3. I could hit on that as well if you'd like me to.
Sure.
That's actually the easier one.
Okay.
As you all know, we, in the beginning of the year, actually, it was probably the end of last year, we committed to Winterfest. And the idea was that we'd take $40,000 out of this year's special event allocation and commit it to a Winterfest expense. This year's special event allocation is $285,000. So we did that not knowing exactly how Winterfest would fare. The deal was that net proceeds would come back to the county. And now we know the net proceeds are the number that's in that budget amendment. And it is $40,492.96. Is that correct?
Thank you. Lisa? Lisa? Right.
That's okay. I was just looking for confirmation on the amount that's in the packet, the $40,492.96, or is it a higher number for the Winterfest revenue?
It's $40,744.
Okay.
Oh,
Let me, so everybody get that in your packet. That budget amendment, rather than being $40,492.96, would be $40,744.02. So, do you, Lisa? I know you sent this to me, but do you have handy the final expense that we'll have out of Winterfest?
It'll actually be the full 40,000.
The full 40,000. Okay. So what that means is our starting position, we had an appropriation of 285,000 out of the fund balance. We took 40,000 of that, again, against the fund balance appropriation to put on Winterfest. Instead, what we're going to have is we're going to have 40,744 in revenue going against a $40,000 expense. So we are $40,744 to the good. So that budget amendment would be to amend revenues and expenses to increase them both by the $40,744. Then the 40 grand expense comes out of that rather than the base 285. Now, and the reason I bring that up first is it sets us up for the conversation about the other budget amendment. So you had that 285,000 in the budget, 22,500 of it is for the North Creek shuttle. We're committed by contract to that. And 2,500 of it is for the Hague Fire Tower. We're committed by multi-year contract to that. So you have $270,000 remaining. That $270,000 is going to go up by $744.02 after Winterfest is all closed out. So you got roughly, rough justice, if you round it up, $271,000. Now, this budget amendment that we have, the first budget amendment for the $300,000, look at the expense codes that we're proposing that to go into. That's in your packet as well. 184,610 is going to be the shortfall in the 25% distribution out to the towns. Every year, you do a 25% distribution of the prior year's occupancy tax revenue. So when we made the 2021 budget, we made the budget based on an assumption that the 2020 revenue was going to be lower than it really was. 2020 revenue came in a little higher, so therefore the 25% expense that we pay out to the towns is going to be a little higher. So that 184,610 makes up for that difference. And then the remainder, the 115,390, that 115,390, that's the remainder of the 300,000. We're proposing to add that to the 271,000 that's available for initial special events. And we do intend on, to some extent, keeping the application process open for additional events that come to us throughout the year. But that's what we're initially looking at, the 271 plus this 115,390. Now that leaves, where does the 300,000 come from? That's the next packet in your page. It came from an Excel that I had. If you look at down below, the occupancy tax revenue for 2020, that's where the very bottom of the first column in bold. That's what we did last year with the books closed, 4,238,439, right, Mike? That compares to the prior year, 4.86 million. The fund balance at the end of 2019 for the OCC tax was $1,350,000. And due to that 4.2 million coming in the way it did, it's a little bit higher than what we thought. If you remember when we talked towards the end of last year, we were thinking maybe we'd do 4 million. We did a little better than that. So what that did is the closing fund balance from last year ended up being $1,632,009. That means last year we actually increased OCC tax fund balance by $281,776. That wasn't the intention of doing the reduction last year. We did the deficit reduction program across the county, and where we did it in OCC tax, what we intended to do was to reduce the expenses to meet the revenue. We didn't want to go backwards. We didn't want to go forwards. We wanted status quo because we wanted to be in a good position this year to fund the recovery. So that amount that's lit up in green there, 281,776, that's excess that we banked last year that we didn't intend to bank. That's where this $300,000 proposed budget amendment is coming from. We propose to take that, what we banked, and insert it into this year's budget in light of last year doing better than we thought. That makes sense?
Any questions on the budget amendment?
Kevin,
Yes, go ahead.
who's go ahead?
Who-
It's Dennis.
Oh, Dennis, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. You haven't talked about any of the supplementary funds. Are we doing that or is that gone?
They're not gone, Dennis, but we've asked the towns to put in applications and we've been getting a few from the towns asking for supplemental monies.
So instead of giving it to the towns, you kept it at the county? Is that what this 300,000 is?
Can I take that, Mr.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, the 300,000 is, we're here today to look at the initial occupancy tax event applications. if you look down at the very bottom of that column I was just reading from, underneath the green highlighted number, that's what this year's budget is based on. So if you remember, we cut last year's expenses down, and we also adopted a very bare bones budget for this year, knowing that we could add to that budget if we ended up doing better, if the COVID recovery went well. This year's expenses in OCTAX are $4.33 million. So we only need $4.33 million in revenue to cover that budget. We're going to do better than $4.33 million. So that was our mentality this year when we made this budget, that as we get further into this year, we see how much better we do than that 4.33 million. And that's a potential restoration based on 2021's performance. So the $300,000 we're talking about today is a restoration based on 2020's performance. And we'll be able to come back again based on 2021, but doing better than budget. We're just getting into the summer. All indications are that for this time of year, we seem to be doing quite well up in Lake George. So we're optimistic and that's why I gave you the 2019 figure. 2019 was a great year for OCTAX. Here's to hoping that we can do another 4.86 million, but we only have to do 4.33 to make budget. We're going to make budget. We're going to be in a position to again bank money unless we amend the budget to do some kind of a restoration this year. And you know, again, recognizing that the budget we adopted this year is very bare bones.
So if you do as well as you think you're going to do, is that where the supplemental funds are going to come? Or are you going to put that back into the county's coffers?
The way we're doing it right now, we're asking the towns if they feel that they had an event that they need extra money for, they make out an application and send it in. Now, we are going to distribute the 25% to the towns shortly, probably this month, before May is finished. We're going to distribute the 669, 609, 82 out to the town. So everybody is going to get their 25% payment when they should, which is before the end of this month.
So I shouldn't be taking any more applications. I should have them all send them to you.
Well, if it's a small application, Dennis, I would say you can do it out of your Oxy tax funds that the town has. Because
you're not following me. We have commitments, Kevin. And now I'm backing up requests for occupancy tax for mostly events, but other things. And now you're telling me that I should send them down. I'll send them down to you. I don't care. I'm not looking at them. I'm sending them to you. Well, I'm not wasting my time.
that's fine, Dennis. Whatever works for you, you go ahead. We'll make sure that the events get funded somehow.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I can tell you, you should be receiving $176,847.38 within the next 2 or 3 days in Oxy tax money.
Well, good thing that's the law, or wouldn't get that. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion, we have a second. Did we pass that budget amendment?
No, we didn't.
We got sidetracked. Any other discussion on the budget?
Mr. Garrity, you don't have a motion.
We don't. Okay, do we have a motion by Supervisor Wild? Do I have a second? I can't see.
Chairman Garrity, is this for just resolution number 2?
This
The
is for 2.
300,000?
This is just for 2.
Okay, yes, I'll second that.
Second by Supervisor Bramer. Any more discussion on resolution number 2?
Chairman, this is Andrea. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. I didn't know
Thank you. Yeah, I'm here. Did I just hear you correctly when you said town applications need to come to the county now and you'll make sure they get funded?
No,
That was
that's
just
what
told
Mr. Dickinson
Supervisor
wants to
Dickinson?
do. That's what Mr. Dickinson wants to do. Okay?
So is that the instruction to all of us?
That's what Mr. Dickinson wants to do. Can we take care of this motion first?
Sure.
Motion is second. Let's vote on the budget amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, we have a second budget amendment, and then we'll go back to your discussion. Resolution requests to amend the budget for the difference between the revenues expenditures on Winterfest. Do you have a motion to approve that? Motion by Supervisor Wild. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Beatty. Any discussions on the Winterfest? Go ahead, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. Could we please have just a quick refresher on how we got to the point where we were asking for revenue back from Winterfest? Because I do think this is something we should be looking at going forward at other events or other for-profit events.
If memory serves, I think that was something that was proposed from the beginning, when it was conceived to do this, that if they made a profit, that the profit would come back to the county. Is that right?
They offered that.
Yeah.
Supervisor Beatty?
I believe Mr. Dutcher was the one who said, hey, if we make more than the cost of the
Expense.
funding from the county, I'll be glad to refund it back or give it back to the county. So it was Mr. Dutcher who came up with that.
Mr. Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just have a question in terms of why we're getting back more than our 40,000 we put in. I know that they had expenses above and beyond. So I'm not looking to have these events add more money, but if we do give them funds to help with their events and they can return some of the funds, I'm all for that, but I don't think we should go beyond what we gave them.
I think the answer to that is that the gross revenue was much higher than the 40,000 that you're looking at in this amendment. So they paid their expenses out of the gross revenue and they gave us the net. And it just so happened that the event did well enough that the net exceeded our investment in it.
Chairman?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Isn't that what we're looking for, to have these events be able to recycle the money and do well? I mean, I think that's great. As long as they covered their costs and they have money to return to us, that's perfect.
Okay.
In my mind, from a policy perspective.
Right. We don't have a policy yet, but we're talking about one in the future.
Kevin. Dennis.
Okay, Dennis. Okay.
Two things. Answer to Andrea's question is, Andrea, you get a 25% payment by law. And that's what's coming. My argument was that in the last few years, we've got supplemental money.
What's he talking about?
What do you mean, what am I talking about? We got supplemental money the last few years.
We're talking about the Winterfest budget amendment.
I understand that. I was trying to answer Andrea's question. The Winterfest,
Pick on the schedule.
the Winterfest, giving the money back is not a normal thing. You think the Civic Center is going to give us back $250,000 when they get done?
Okay, let's get back on track. Do we have a motion to approve the Winterfest budget amendment? Motion by Supervisor Wild. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Bramer. Any more discussion on the budget amendment for Winterfest? All those figure signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Carried. All right. We have several items on page 2. Mike, you want to give the revenue report?
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll start off with the figures that Administrator Moore gave you, which was the closing of the book figures for 2020. 2020, we collected 4.2 million. In the previous year, 2019, we collected 4.8 million. So we were down 14.5%. And just as in this year, now comparing 21 to 20, we're up, and I handed out this, but we're up 16%. But this time period from 2020 was pretty rough and pretty dead. So what I did was, and I forgot to include it here on this, but I went back and looked at the same time period in 19, and we're 2.1% above what we were in 19. So that's a good thing. What I'm going to be doing going forward is I'm going to spend more time comparing to 19's figure when I bring these figures to you than 20's, because 20, obviously we all know what happened in 20. But the biggest part of our loss, that $600 and some thousand, the majority of that was from the first almost half of 2020, because once we got to this point in 2020, things started picking up really good. So Questions?
No questions?
Oh, Mr. Wild.
Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Michael, how are we
Yes.
doing with the Airbnb vacation rentals? Where do we stand with that? What type of revenue, if we get something resolved from some of the major players, could we expect to add to this?
We will be adding to this, yes. As far as where we are at with trying to get agreements with these internet providers, we're still working on that, but there's some major problems. And the majority of those problems relate to how our occupancy tax law is set up here, which means that I need to know where every dollar comes from within each municipality so that I make sure that when the distribution is done, each municipality gets their proper 25%. The internet providers right now are telling us that they cannot do that. They cannot guarantee that they know where this money is coming from. So, well, I'm just telling you where we're at. So we're going back and forth with this. Ryan Dickey, the attorney in the county attorney's office, has been working very diligently on this. He and I had a meeting early last week, and we have resubmitted another proposal to Airbnb. I have not heard whether that has come back from them yet or not. My thought is that they will probably redline it pretty heavily and send it back because they're not happy with what we're asking for. Now, another thing when we talk about that, we've done some audits and we've sent out a ton of letters. My phone has not stopped ringing. I'm surprised at the number of properties that we are already actually collecting on, because a lot of the resort properties along Lake George especially are already using Airbnb to book for their properties, and they are paying us what they collect for that. So we're getting a portion of that already, these short-term rentals. I don't know how much yet, but we're working on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Bramer, you had a question?
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity. No, not a question. I'm glad to hear that the treasurer is making some progress on the negotiations with Airbnb, because that seemed to be stuck forever. I do know that in the city of Glens Falls and also Queensbury, they are looking at a software tech company to help them manage the registrations and the collection of well, hopefully it'll go to the county directly. It does go to the county directly. The collection of occupancy tax from all kinds of platforms. So not just Airbnb, but other short-term rental platforms. And I would really like us to see the county go in that direction to help with our internal audit person, make sure that we have a good grasp on all the short-term rentals that are out there. This is what this company does. That's like one of their main focuses. And it's a constantly evolving market because people are constantly putting their properties on the market and off the market and changing their prices and all of that kind of stuff. So it's very, very difficult for someone in the treasurer's office to be able to manage all of that and keep track of all of the properties throughout Warren County. You think about not just Lake George, but Johnsburg has a very large universe of short-term rentals. And, you know, other places like in Queensbury and Glens Falls are gaining on that as well. So I think we really need to look at this opportunity to partner with our municipalities to help collect this occupancy tax in a way that makes sure the treasurer knows exactly where the money is coming from and gets the money back to the municipalities properly. Lake George is already using a particular company and they are very happy with them. And that's the same company that Queensbury and Glens Falls are about to contract with. And it would be really nice to see us do a shared services agreement with all of those municipalities and cover it under the county umbrella. I would like to ask this committee to have a presentation from the company, or maybe just to our tourism department staff, and see if they think it's worthwhile, and then bring it to the committee. Of course, I think depending on costs, we're going to have to go out for an RFP. So I've told the city they might need to go on without us at least for a year.
Can I respond to that, Mr.
Go
Chair?
ahead, Mike.
We have a meeting, I believe, at 2:00 this afternoon. To review a proposal from I think it's the same company that's in the city of Glens Falls, if I'm not mistaken. So we will be talking with them this afternoon because there was a lot of information flying around. And I said, well, I haven't gotten anything directly. So let's set up something. We're going to talk with the representative from that company today at 2:00 and we'll see where it goes. I have no problem with dealing with somebody like that, but I just need to know what we're doing.
Mr. Dixon, you had your hand.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, how about changing the law? What are you talking about?
I guess I don't understand the question, Dennis. I'm so.
Well, you said according to the law, you had to deal with these people. You're never going to get anywhere with Airbnb. And I'm pretty sure you feel that way yourself. But so my point is, why don't we change the law?
I guess I don't understand. Change it to what? I mean, the problem with the way our law is set up is the distribution back to the towns at 25% and the supplemental. I have to know exactly where that's coming from. They're reluctant to give us that. So my gut feeling is that we probably are not going to have an agreement with them. And that's why I'm pushing forward to get everybody registered with the county.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on this topic? Okay, moving right along.
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I forgot to make one point. I'm sorry. In the packet, the Excel sheet that I mentioned that has the colors on it, take a look at that. See if you think that's a useful display. I worked with Lisa to try to simplify how we display, how we spend tax dollars, broke it up into the categories that to me make the most intuitive sense. If you think that that's a useful display, I'll try to keep using that as we have financial discussions going forward. It can be a little hard to follow all the moving pieces of where we spend money because we spend it across 2 different departments and there are a lot of account codes involved. But I think summarizing it this way at least makes sense to me. So I just want to put that out there.
I'm sorry, where is that? Which one are you referring to?
it's in your packet.
Yeah.
That thing with just the yellow and the red? Okay.
Yep.
Correct. It's in your packet. Okay, discussion items, and we'll go through, we did a revenue report, special event funding applications accepted on a rolling basis. Any further discussion on that? I know the hospitality group kind of in their information they sent out just yesterday that they thought that maybe we should come with a date for the applications rather than having on a revolving basis. They felt that it gets a little confusing on that, but we can have more discussion on that for in the future. The 2021 events that did not occur. Anybody wants to discuss those or? No?
2020 events?
It says 2021 events. I can't hear you. Okay, yeah. This is just to update people on anybody who puts in a 21 application for funding. If the event doesn't happen, you will not get any funding. I guess that was, some of these discussion items were brought to me, so we're just getting them on here. So if your event doesn't occur in 2021, we're not going to pay out the Oxy tax funding. The countywide special events application packet, that was in your handouts. Anybody have any questions about any of that? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, it's Andrea.
Hold on. Supervisor Bramer was first.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Andrea, I got my hand up before you raised are we talking about the form that we kind of, at the last meeting, we went through all the applications that we had at the time, and that was using the new application form that was proposed. I mean, I'm totally fine with the application form itself. On the scoring, I still think that we need to break down the scoring points a little bit more with different dollar amounts so that we have a bigger range between, not a bigger, actually another range in between, say, 35 to 46. I'm sorry, I don't have a proposal for you today, but I think that's something that we need to look at so that we don't have just $24,000, $34,000, and then 50,000. Be good to have something in between there, some smaller breakdowns in between there.
Do you have a, Joanne would like to address that?
I think the understanding is that events that are before us now, currently this year, we were using the previously established application guidelines score sheet. And then this draft packet of information that had the many changes, which includes the scoring sheet, they're included here for your review. And then at the next meeting, June 3rd, we would discuss that. And then we had talked among us about maybe a workshop to understand all things in the world of occupancy tax and how they all work together, but this is certainly part of it. So one is the applications that we reviewed previously, and two is the new set of guidelines, application scoring, moving forward with events for 2022. That was my understanding.
Yeah, it's to get it out so you would have the
Time
red
for
line
review.
version, which is highlighted in yellow. So you would have time to look at them. We have another meeting scheduled in June, what is it? June 3rd. Andrea, you had a question? Andrea Hogan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you calling for a motion to approve
No,
the, oh, okay, you're not.
these are
I
all
was
put on
unclear what
for,
you were calling for.
these are all put on the agenda for information only. And have any discussion, Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just briefly, the nonprofit event scoring gets 10 points. Do we feel that that's adequate? Did you consider 15, 20? I have a preference for nonprofit events to get special attention from the occupancy tax. So I'm just curious if there's, what was the basis behind the 10 points versus maybe a 20 points?
I'll defer to tourism
Thank you.
folks.
I think all of these points are up for discussion.
Sure.
So that would be, take all of these documents, a good point made. And actually in the document provided by the hospitality group, they said, maybe we should look at events that do make a profit because that is their business to bring in large events. So do weigh those differently. So they're different schools of thought. So that's not a hard and fast, not for profit 10 points. I think that's part of the discussion and decisions we make for 2022.
Thank you.
Chairman Siebert.
Thank you, Chairman Garrity. I just wanted to state that I really appreciate the work that has gone into this to have this dialogue and to get to this point. As Supervisor Wild and Supervisor Bramer have brought up some suggestions, the goal is to have everybody take a look at this. And then it was my understanding, that we would try to pinpoint a lot of this information through Kristen, working with Joanne and Lisa in the OCTAX department or in tourism, so that we could take into account the tourism, the hospitalities groups, their suggestions. I know I'm hopeful that at the next meeting, we'll be able to have some dialogue about changes to both the form and the application. But it's the intent of this board collaboratively, the 20 of us, to have a resolution in front of us moving forward after there's been input for us to make a resolution and pass it that updates the OCTAX and the scoring form, the application and the scoring form. That scoring form has really remained untouched by board action since 2004, since we started doing scoring. So it's probably the single most important document in the law that tells events what to expect and how to comply, and what we expect and how we as a board will also be given weight to other events. So I hope everyone takes some time to get their suggestions, ideally in advance, but to have that discussion and send that information on to Kristen, because at this point, this is where we're really able to make some significant changes in the overall process and procedure. And I know it's a lot of information, but I think we've all been talking about this for a really long time, and how we, even to Supervisor Dennis Dickinson's point, I know last January, he said it was time to start talking about changing the application and the scoring sheet. So this is where the homework comes in as committee members, and hopefully as a full board, we can weigh in on this and make those positive changes. So thank you, Chairman.
Any other discussions? Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you. I'm really glad to be able to take the time to look at this. I wasn't quite prepared to have a policy discussion today, so I'm glad we're going to look at it. And I think just something to put in your mind, Joanne, is adding something to this form, the scoring sheet about our municipal events, or something, whether it's a shuttle bus or a website or something else brought to the committee from the municipalities, given that we're saying, you're not going to have this, what I'm putting in quotes, extra money, but you'll come to the county. How are we going to score those types of things? Is that going to be done with this scoring sheet? Or are we going to use a different type of methodology? What my goal is to try to make the most impactful and efficient use of our occupancy tax dollars. And that's why I'm glad that I'm going to use Dennis's term, keeping some of the money in the county coffers, because maybe we can do something a little bit more, powerful, lumping it all together. Certainly, though, not to leave the towns out to dry. So if they have something that they really want to put on or fund, let's make sure that we're helping them do that. And do we need a different scoring system for that? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussions on these? And anybody who would like a set of this information that's not on the committee, let tourism department know, and they'll get the information out to you.
Chairman, it's Andrea.
Yes. Go ahead, Andrea.
Thank you. I would like to see us put a little more weight on shoulder season events as well. And we need to acknowledge new events in some way that gives them a little bit of ability to boost over existing events. Because the whole idea is to expand our OCTAC year after year. So if there's some way we can put a little more weight on those. And I appreciate Supervisor Bramer's remarks about helping the town. From my perspective, there's a lot of talk about putting responsibilities back on the town, but at the same time, we're taking away the supplemental. And those two are conflicting concepts. So we're going to have to figure out some way, if we're going to keep the supplemental out of the equation, you can't talk about more going back on the towns at the same time that you're taking away our ability to fund things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on any of this suggestions? So June 3rd, please come and email in your concerns to the tourism department so we can try to capture them. Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you. Just one more, not about that kind of thing, but before we leave this discussion, are we talking about amending the budget to include the money from the American Rescue Plan? It's sort of an administrative question, I think, because that could be a significant dollar amount. I think looking at the difference between, wherever the heck that went, the 2020 and the 2019, we can fund that all, I'm assuming, with.
If we can, and if you can benchmark it to 2019, then the difference between 2019 and 2020 is about 625,000. If my math is off. So as long as it's permitted under the regulations, then that could be another opportunity.
Okay, any other discussions? Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The new application and so forth. The one thing that I would like to see us do, and I think we're already on track with that, is to ensure that the applications, whatever applications we get in, are complete. I mean, and when I say that, I mean complete. There's a number of questions that are always left blank or answered partially, and I think it does a disservice and lessens the credibility of the whole process if, let's say, the Dome does their application completely, and then 5 other events do it half, fill out the event application form only halfway through. I think what happens is then that out in the community, it becomes almost, hey, yeah, they got an application form. You don't have to fill it out. You can do it in 2 minutes and bingo, and they'll still get we'll still get some money. I just like to see it done completely, thoroughly, and fairly, so that we're evaluating events in their entirety from the information that we see from the application. And if someone doesn't complete the application in full, I'm sure our tourist department would contact that individual, give them one chance to do it completely, and so it doesn't get kicked off to the side. Because personally, if it's not filled out correctly or completely, I don't want to see it. And I don't care if it's for whatever event. If they're not going to take the time, if they're going to ask for money, but won't take the time to even fill out the application, then that loses a ton of credibility in my mind. And I don't even want to see the event application. So that's. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Point well taken, Supervisor Beatty, but it's up to us to make sure that falls right onto the supervisors to make sure that the applicants understand that it's not the tourism department that will kick back their application. It'll be the board of supervisors for them not completing it, because we get into discussions and going after people, several phone calls, numerous phone calls. And then sometimes the pressure comes from supervisors. Well, can you look the other way on this one or that one? So your point's very well taken, but we are the ones that need to make sure that the applicants understand that every box is checked and is filled in before we're going to consider it, and not get upset with our tourism department. That's on us. Supervisor Beatty.
Thank you. Thank you for the follow, Mr. Chairman. I agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on, Andrea. We got people in the boardroom
I
first.
snuck in front of you, Andrea, so sorry. I totally agree. It's up to us. Could I request that we advise the tourism department to not even pass along an event application if it's not complete?
Well, I think, yes, but I think we need to stand behind the tourism department
Totally
when
agree.
when they kick back an application, because it's easy to pick up the phone. I will get you, Supervisor Stroud. I see you. It's easy to pick up the phone and call one of the supervisors and say, hey, they're making me do a little bit more than I want to. So I'm fine with that. And I think as long as we support our tourism department. Supervisor Stroud, I saw you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Garrity. I just want to be, I'm repeating myself. I know I've said this several times already, but I think we have to be careful with being narrow-minded about this. You have organizations that don't have a history. In other words, they don't have the information yet. Perhaps they will if they're successful, and they could be successful. They should not be denied consideration because they don't have the information available, because they don't have the history to have that information available. The other thing is that some organizations are small, yet they have a very good idea, and it could be very successful. So again, and like I said, I'm repeating myself, we have to look at every application on an individual basis. If you adopt an all prevailing philosophy on this, it's, I don't think that's effective. It's not workable. And you're going to shut a lot of people out who could be otherwise successful and add to the tourism industry in our area. Thank you.
What I would like to see, Supervisor Stroud, is with our tourism department now and the way we expanded out, perhaps we can give some help with these applications that need help collecting the data, or where to get the data from for the first time ones who don't have the data. Perhaps we can offer assistance in helping them meet the criteria of what we're looking for. So, I don't think we're going to carte blanche, but we're going to work with them to get everybody doing the same thing. We have detailed applications that come in now. We have ones that don't come in with items missing. But with our tourism department, I think it's a little more work, but we're more than willing to work with these groups to try to get them on track. But good point taken. I think, Andrea, you're on the phone. Okay, I don't hear it. Anybody else on the application process, which we'll talk more June 3rd, and hopefully if it would be better if you could email your information to Joanne so we can try to capture it for our next agenda. Okay. On F, we talked about the funding on May 13th. We came up with suggested amounts for a lot of events. I would like to revisit that today, and at least the municipal events, I would like to talk with the committee about approving those. With our budget amendment, we still, I think they total around $102,500 more than we had before. Now we've added to our budget, so we certainly can fund those events. I don't know if there's any concerns from anybody. A lot of time was put into these events, and I'm just talking about the through I guess Joe, Lisa, I'm a little confused. Which ones are we talking about? The 303,000 total, or are we going down to the previously funded? Where are we stopping? At the 303?
We got as far as down to the municipal requests last time. So the new applicants of 47,000 and then the 303, that's 350,000 for the new applicants and the signature events. And then we referred back to the municipality, the Empire State Towing and Recovery and Prospect Center. And then we kind of broke up after that. And
Okay,
we were talking about the town of Horicon, I think was the last thing we talked about.
let's segment them. Let's go down through the Warrensburg Chamber of Commerce, world's largest garage sale. Is the committee comfortable with the $303,000 for those events? I think a lot of effort, a lot of discussion was put on those. Supervisor Bramer.
Chairman, I just have a question about in my packet, I can't see the dollar numbers. Because I can't see, is the scoring sheet or this thing in our emails? Because I could pull it up electronically.
I
Is this
don't
what you're
know how
referring-
this came to them.
This.
It was in your
this
packet.
format, originally it was last.
It's not printed
This is, yeah.
landscape, so I can't see the dollars.
It's 300,000.
No, it's okay.
303.
Just give me 1 second. I'll pull it up online. Please.
There was 102,500, I think, is what equates to this, right? Where we changed up the numbers from what they asked
I think I know
for.
where it is.
Okay.
The problem is that it needed to be formatted in landscape. It was formatted in portrait. So you're not getting,
Oh,
you're only getting a partial print here. The dollar amounts that were agreed to are not in the packet.
Well, we can make copies of that. I'd make a copy.
Yeah.
You want to, can you do that? Make a couple copies for. You have this page too? Here, just.
Okay. Supervisor Wild, it's in the
Hold
agenda
on.
packet
We'll
online.
be right back. So we. It should be exactly the same as what we left the meeting with the other on May 13th. Can you hang on till we get the sheets back?
Anybody's
Just
able to-
shuffle some papers, all right? Would you look busy over there, Bramer?
If you're able to get online and look at the agenda online, it's online.
Yeah, I thought we ended with 362,000, or then I saw 344,000.
We did end up with 362. It's 350 for the signature and the new events combined, and 12,000 for Town of Orca.
Yeah, I remember our numbers just weren't jiving last time.
Okay. As soon as you get the spreadsheets, we'll go back to that. Thank you, Cam.
Don't be nervous.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tanner.
That's what I was gonna ask him.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I can see it now, and I appreciate the printed copy. I just want to understand if the column in the amount suggested, is that what you were looking to approve today? And is that what we suggested at the last committee meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, because in the packet, you're asking us for this first guide, Tim, okay, I don't know how to pronounce that name, the craft producers, down through Warrensburg Chamber of Commerce, 303,000.
That's it. Just these right now.
Okay.
And then we'll go to the next ones. I like to segment it because I'm confused. So
Can I just follow up one more? Those are all, these amounts on the right-hand column are what we said during committee meeting, what we kind of had consensus about.
Yes, ma'am. Suggested amount. So I'm asking the committee if they will approve that so we can get something out to our, because Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm ready to approve that, but I just have a question about the Warrensburg bike rally. We're awaiting info on
Right.
this.
He's not sure when he's going to do that. So he hasn't got back to us about when he wants to have that on a date.
So assuming that we do the 40,000 for that, that would take us to 340. Are we still positive in terms of the amount of money we have in the budget?
The amounts that I went over earlier, if I may, add up to $386,134.02.
So it doesn't give us much room to do much of anything else.
Well, we've never awarded that kind of money to the bike rally, Mr. Wild.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you, Mr.
so
Chairman.
Supervisor Bramer.
Okay, so this, we're actually looking at 350,000.
No, we're looking
is
at
the-
303,000.
It is 350.
350? Oh, okay, I've been corrected.
It's just a little hard to see because the 47,000 is summed there at the top.
Okay, yeah.
And then,
yeah.
okay, I just want to be clear what we're doing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
do we have a motion by Supervisor Bramer?
Yes.
Do we have a second? Supervisor Wild, any further discussion? Anybody on Zoom? Anybody on the phone? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we're there. Now, previously funded by local municipality. Somebody want to address that? Anybody? The towing and recovery.
I think we already discussed it.
So did we notify them to send it back to community? And have the communities taken care of those?
I've sent them back. What
Okay.
they've done with them, I don't know. I've sent them both back to the village of Lake George.
Okay, thank you. Then the next, our future consideration, Lake George Music Festival.
Those are just on there so that everyone remembers that they're looking for money, but they don't take,
They don't take place the next year,
correct,
2022. Okay, so we can skip over those.
right.
And we go to the 3 municipal applications. The town of Horkin for the food trucks, the town of Johnsburg for the marketing, which we didn't discuss, and the village of Lake George for the fireworks, which we didn't discuss, but I see that Sylvia is here representing her town, Horkin. I think Andrea got off, must be out of range on the phone. And then the Village of Lake George, the mayor is on the call to talk about the fireworks. So would the committee like to revisit those today? Because we didn't come set on the suggestions. We had an explanation from the town of Horkin. We didn't get anything from the village. Do you want to revisit the awards for the town of Horkin and the Village of Lake George? Supervisor Bramer.
If the mayor is on, I would like to hear from him
Sure.
about the fireworks.
Mayor
proposal.
Blaze?
Yeah, I'm on, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, this year is an unusual year, as you know, not knowing whether we're going to actually be able to do the fireworks. But one of the reasons we're applying this year is because of the calendar year and all of our advertising in past years through the Warren County Tourism. Obviously, fireworks has been one of the major undertakings that we've done, also one of the most expensive that you might imagine. The cost of fireworks has risen dramatically over the last 3 years, but this year is quite unusual in the fact that we're faced with 10 Thursdays rather than 8. We're used to doing 7 or 8 shows. We usually would leave one Thursday for a rain date at the end of the season, but we were even criticized, and most people were very, very disappointed in years that we did that the last Thursday, for instance, in August, or it might be the first Thursday in a date of September, we wouldn't have a show because we didn't have any rain out. So this year we decided to go ahead and schedule every Thursday evening, and because of the calendar, we're faced with 10 shows plus our 4th of July show. Ordinarily, if the 4th of July fell in the first week in July, like the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, or it was connected to a Thursday evening, if you can understand, we would not do a regular Thursday night show on a Thursday night, then turn around and do another show on Friday or Wednesday. This year, July 1st is a Thursday, so we feel obligated because of our advertising to do a show, and the 4th of July falls on a Sunday. So that adds another show to our coffers this year. Besides all the pleas that you've heard from me in the past about being short of funds because of our new wastewater treatment plant, which the county has been extremely cooperative with the village on that. The shows this year are going to cost the village $20,000 to $25,000 more than they have in the past. Now, we have reached out prior to COVID, and we were able to secure some sponsors for some of those weekly shows. With COVID happening and with the uncertainties of this summer, so far, we have not been able to secure sponsors for a great majority of the shows. Even when we were doing them regularly, we were not able to fill sponsorships with all the shows. So I'm kind of looking at this request as hopefully being a one-time request because of the fact that we're having to do some extra shows to keep our word to the tourist, to make sure, and I'm sure Joanne understands this in tourism, we just advertised every show in July and August and September, and when we didn't have a show, the phones would ring off the hook. I do believe that the fireworks are one of the largest attractions that we have in the county. We see people coming to the village. We get calls from all the surrounding chambers when the weather is iffy as to whether we're going to have the shows, because they're all getting telephone calls in Bolton and Luzerne and I'm sure all over most of the county, because they're spectacular. they're free, and they're extremely popular. So I'm kind of looking at this request as something that probably won't happen again, but the request is there because the shows have now increased in price. We're up to around $12,000 for our 4th of July show to make it respectable. And our regular shows now are running between $6,500 and $7,000 a show. But again, the extra money is needed this year to fill our budget. We've also got more events in the village than we've ever had before. And obviously, we're looking to fund those out of our own occupancy tax as well. I know that I don't have to tell you folks that Shepherd Park has entertainment every single night throughout the entire summer. And we also fund a very large show every Friday evening. And we're sorely a little bit short this year in our fireworks. So that's the reason for our asking this year, because of the way the calendar falls. Actually comes out to be 10 or 11 shows.
Thank you, Mayor. Supervisor Bramer had a question.
Thank you, Mayor. That's really helpful to understand where you're coming from. And I'm, to have it be a one-time request is kind of, I think that's a good idea. And I just have two requests. Is the application, did the mayor fill out an application? And if without objection, if we could hear from Gina about, because he mentioned the chambers and other people being interested in the fireworks displays.
Sure, we'll address the application. Lisa, we did get an application. Yes, we have an application from the mayor. Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And if I may address the mayor, thank you, Mayor, for all you've done. At this time, I think I need to disagree with this request, primarily because we will have exhausted all the money we just transferred by the time we do this. And it leaves us no opportunity to do something else. So we've had a great opportunity to see the private sector and the business sector come together. There was a bit of an example of that last year. I'd like to see if we could do that again. And if we could make a hold on this until, let's say, the end of July, before we make a decision, I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I don't disagree with that, because again, there's a tremendous uncertainty as to whether or not we're going to be able to do all those shows. As you well know, there's going to be actually a piece on Channel 13 tonight about it, because we've had so many calls. They're cooperating, and they're going to do a little segment on the fireworks shows in Lake George. At this particular point right now, we're really on hold, because there is no way we can comply with the regulations. So I'm really waiting to see what Albany's going to do and Saratoga's going to do. But we're kind of optimistic that we're going to be able to at least do the first show, maybe July 1st, and see if we can do it safely. But I'm not in disagreement that we could not wait until July or August. I certainly understand the budgetary constraints that the county's under as well.
What was your other request, Supervisor Bramer?
To have Gina speak to the committee. But if the mayor is willing to hold off, I don't think we need to move forward today.
Okay.
Sounds like.
And I don't see Supervisor Hogan to discuss the Johnsburg. Is there any more further discussion on the town of Horicon? We had a suggestion of $12,000 to help them get the food trucks, make that into a annual event. Any discussion about the $12,000 for the town of Horicon? Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you again. I am in support of this. I'm just not certain if we can afford $12,000. Maybe there's a way we can do 10, 8, something to that effect, and whether it would still work for the town. But I am in support of trying to help them do this.
Yeah, I think I'll go to the administrator. We do have another, some more funding that potentially will become available.
Yeah, that's the piece I mentioned earlier when I went to the very bottom figure on that, the handout that I made. So the amendment that we made today was based on 2020's success. We're going to have a successful 2021. We just are, we know it. And we got to think positive about it. But the 2021 budget's, the revenue we need to make budget is 4.3 million. We're going to do better than that. So the same way that we amended the budget as a result of 2020, doing better than expected, we're going to have that same opportunity when 2021 does better than expected. Mike Swan will continue to come to these meetings and keep us appraised of how that revenue is coming in. And so to the extent that we have additional events like ice castles, whatever the case may be, that we have additional town applications coming in, that we have additional special events that may not have come to us already, that want to come to us on a rolling basis, there will be a source to deal with that. And to Supervisor Bramer's question earlier, if we can utilize the stimulus funds to replace lost revenue from last year, then we have that too. So we do have a good deal of opportunity here in addition to what we've added to the budget today.
Plus our reserve is higher than,
That's a good point too.
our reserve is about $600,000 more than what we're required. We're required to keep $1 million. We're at 1.6 million in the reserve.
Actually, the 1.6 million has the million taken out of it.
Yeah.
So
our reserve is a lot higher. So, the only thing I'll say about I know everybody's concerned, but the village, Horkin, they do these events to attract people into the community. There's a lot, as Supervisor McGowan pointed out, he goes to Horkin. He did go up there for the food trucks. I think these are events, and if, we're giving for-profit events money, and if we can't put some money into our communities, our towns, that seems a little counterproductive at times. We're giving for-profit people who make profits off the ox tax money, but yet we're putting our towns at a little bit on the edge for getting them. So I fully support both of them, but and I do believe there will be plenty of funding. We are being conservative. We have been conservative. And I know that doesn't make my friend from Lake George happy, but we've been conservative through this whole pandemic. And when the funds weren't there, I believe we're back on track. As I said, the checks will be going out to the municipalities this month for the true up to 25%. So I would like to see us help these two communities out. It's just my opinion. Anybody else?
Yes, Chairman.
Supervisor Stroud, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Garrity. I basically agree with what you just said, but the other note too is that, and I'm sure Mayor Blaze knows this, is that if you're going to set up a fireworks show, given the explosion that we're seeing all over the country, you need to set up your fireworks people ahead of time. And they're going to expect money and resources to be dedicated to this. I think the mayor has to have the kind of financing assured that he can go ahead and set these fireworks up programs. You can't do this willy-nilly. You have to do this well ahead of time. And I'm sure the mayor will want to speak to this, but that's what I believe. Thank you.
Supervisor Wild first.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I agree with what the Honorable Supervisor from Queensbury also mentioned. I believe that we can do the 12,000 for the town of Horkin, and for the village fireworks, I would agree to commit to that $25,000 request, but it's dependent upon the weather. So if we have one or two the events that don't happen, maybe the mayor can help us understand what that number would reduce to, but I'm all for that to be able to allow them to move forward with this commitment.
Yes, Supervisor Beatty.
I thought the mayor said that they were going to go through whether or not. Did I miss that? Didn't he say, Mayor Blaze, did you say that you were going to go ahead with the fireworks weather, irregardless of the weather, correct? Because you had so many people last year calling and
Oh.
saying,
No, as far as the weather is concerned, what we usually did was have a rain date set at the end of the season. This was to satisfy, contractual obligations as well as the tourist. This year, or in the past years, when we never had a rain out, and our fireworks contract, however, allows for a rain out. In other words, if we call the fireworks company by 4 o'clock in the afternoon of that evening's date, we're able to cancel that show. What we have to do is give them a rain date, obviously, at another time. So we've done that in the past, but this year, because of the calendar, because of the fact that sometimes we would never have a show at the end of the season and Labor Day falls so late this year and the first Thursday is July 1st, we're just faced with extra shows. We're not planning on a rain date at all. However, if we had a rain date, for instance, now on a Thursday evening, yes, we would have to make that up on another night. And we probably would do a shoot on a Tuesday or Monday or something special we'd have to come up with. So once we sign that contract at the beginning of the season, we're obligated to go. We have not signed the contract yet. The company has been working with us very well in the past. They understand that at the present time, we would not be able to do a show safely. I would expect we're probably going to have to sign that contract sometime within the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Perhaps, Mayor Blaze, Kevin, perhaps maybe you could, if you did have a cancellation due to heavy rains or something, maybe they wouldn't have to reschedule. Maybe you wouldn't need to give them all rain dates this year. Maybe they'd work.
Yeah, they've worked with us very well in the past, and again, they're happy, obviously, that we haven't scheduled any rain dates. We want to fulfill our obligations to the tourists. If we say every Thursday in July and August, that's what we want to do. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But again, I understand all the comments made by the supervisors. It's a difficult call because it's a contract and it depends on the weather and the shows. Sometimes I'll make the call I have in the past, as you can imagine, made a call to Mechanicville at 3:30 because if they load the truck, we're obligated to pay $1,500. If the truck moves from Mechanicville, we're obligated to pay the entire amount. So I have sometimes called at 3:30 based on the weather reports, and as you all know, it clears up 6:30, 7 o'clock, and the beach road starts filling up, and the people are deeply disappointed. They don't understand that we had to make the call by 3:30 in the afternoon. So it's a tough call. But in any event, this year we're planning for the best. We're being very optimistic. And if it is, I know Gina's worked very hard. The Chamber's worked hard on trying to secure sponsors, but they're few and far between, particularly after the difficult year we've had. So again, that's the only reason that I've come forth with this request.
Okay. Supervisor McGowan had a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I support this. I'd support this on the floor, even though I'm not on the committee. It's a huge attraction. It has been for many years. It brings a lot of people into the community, and it just boosts everything for the Lake George and all around. So I wouldn't have a problem with this. And I know, getting that schedule and contract, I'd hate to wait to the last minute to put any squeeze on you there, Mayor. So I'm on that, and and you've heard me on the Horicon. That's a great event up there, and it pulls from the North Country, and I just like I said, we have this money, and it's really put back in, to all the right profit, the right areas, and I'd really like to push. I know we just agreed to some, and we're going to discuss it. But really, for the profit groups is getting some kickback, and it's something I think we should have done before we approved that the people, you know, could help us out there, and that would just keep the money flowing. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Smith, did you have anything to add on the request from Horkin?
I'm very pleased that you've agreed to 12,000. All I can say is thank you. We're working hard to make sure that goes.
Okay.
And it is a yearly event. And I did want to comment that I know in the discussion before, there was comment about, well, your businesses, they should put in. Well, they are putting in. They're all volunteering that night. We have to have numerous people on board, and all of those are volunteers. I also wanted to say that the Town of Horkin Beautification Committee and many of our employees work Friday night, don't get out of there till 9:30, 10 o'clock. Some of them are paid, most of them aren't. So there are a lot of volunteers that, when I forget the terminology, skin off them, but whatever, they are all involved. So I just wanted to make that statement because I didn't want anybody to think that we were sitting up there and just expecting it all to be paid for without working ourselves. So thank you again.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. Supervisor Smith, I appreciate your comments, and I guess I'm happy to support the 12,000 and the dollars for the mayor. I think that in both instances, if you guys are able to come up with additional dollars, it would be nice to have that taken off what you request from the county. So I think an up to.
So you're
those
making
two
that a
amounts.
motion?
Yep.
Motion 12 and 25. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Merlino. Any further discussion on the two community events? Supervisor Thomas, sorry.
Yeah, if I recall, the request from Horkin was for $19,325. So I don't have a problem with supporting fireworks, but I think if a community's put together an event that they're going to continue to do yearly and attracts 800 to 1,200 people, and they want to put up a tent so they don't have to cancel their event, I think we should get behind them and support them fully.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Does anybody want to revise the amount for Horkin? Okay, Supervisor Wow.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to the supervisor, have a question for the supervisor from Horkin.
Sure.
Sylvia, can you guys do it with the 12,000? Can you still make it work?
We'll do our best, but of course, we did ask for more, but because of the fact that we're looking to add that tent in order to have that set up all summer long for the entire year after year. And the other reason for that tent is not only for Food Truck Friday, which is a must, but also we have our Historical Society that has summer events. We also have the library, Friends of the Library, that do events outside. That wasn't even mentioned, but that tent would be something that would be used all summer long. And people come in there from the beach and do their, sit and have lunch and whatever. So, that tent was multi-purpose.
12,000 will work for you.
We can make it work,
There we
I
go.
will say. Not,
Thank
you're
you,
always
Mr. Chair.
open for the extra, but we'll make it work. I'm very thankful.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Let's vote on the two community events. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, those two events are handled. Okay, that gets us through that portion.
I believe we're gonna need a little more money out of the reserve. Are you agreement with that, Ryan?
We just approved 25 and 12.
37.
25
We
and
were,
12.
we only had 18 left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're short.
So we
21.
originally had 270. We approved last, no, I guess the 12th already included here. And I came up with 23,390 that we had left out of the 115,390 we were transferring in. And I guess we would have another $744 from Winterfest, but
Yeah, I have, we had 36,134 available and we just committed 37,000. So
I can ask the mayor to take some of the parking meter money.
It's already happening.
All right, we'll work it
yeah,
out.
not all of these are immediate expenses.
Yeah,
so
so
it's the account's
some
not
of these are
go
gonna
into
be
the-
October and we run in
Yeah,
short.
we know we're gonna come back and hit this account again, I think, but based on 2021 performance. So
All right. June 3rd, is everybody set on what we're gonna talk about June 3rd? Supervisor Bramer?
Thank you. On that, and you have a note there about the getting our, feedback to Kristen. I was just wondering if she could speak to anything else, what her vision is for the changes in the packet and what she sees important there and what we should be looking at to give her feedback on, please.
Chris?
Sure, thank you, Supervisor Bramer. So first of all, with regard to what you have in front of you, it is basically what we're going to consider a working draft. This is what you've been working on for the last several years, and the whole purpose really of the June meeting or the workshop is really for us to have that open discussion about where we are now. We've just scored and approved what you've been, what the applications have been in front of us. And moving forward, we're looking to really create a process and procedure that's going to help regenerate that OCTAX over and over. So, we'll be talking about what are the processes that we can do, what are the guidelines, the criteria that we want to talk about moving forward that are going to help us shift and change that occupancy tax fund becomes a regenerating fund over and over that will only grow year to year. So looking at these current applications, evaluation criteria, think about things like, what's important to your community, not just the ROI in looking at, does it bring room nights, but is it an asset to your community? Is it something that can grow and develop? And, if it's a unique type of an event that we're going to be looking at and scoring, what is the PR and marketing value? Can the tourism department and what we're doing in terms of marketing, advertising dovetail into what that existing event or what those future events are going to do for us in the future? So looking at all these different types of things critically and from an evaluation perspective, those are the kinds of conversations I think that we're hoping to have going forward into that meeting on June 3rd. So it's really, we're sort of in that in-between stage right now, but it's looking to try and maximize out the current existing OCTAX funding and making that and creating a mechanism so that can continuously grow.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other comments on that? So there's a lot, and like I said, if there's certain changes you would like to talk about, I do believe that the chairwoman would like us to bring all this back to the full board for approval eventually. And if we get it there sometime after summer, that would be fine too, but we should continue to work on this because there will be more applications coming in. I did hear that we know that ice castles are going to be coming in for some funding in the future. So we need to keep that in mind. That's a winter-long event that could really boost our economy. It should have boosted our economy up here for a long time to come. So we'll have further discussion on that in the future. I'll ask Joanne to do the market data RFP and let them know where we are on that.
Thank you, Chairman. We did receive 3 qualified responses to the competitor market data RFP that went out. I did score them and I reviewed them with Chairman Garrity. There are at least 2 that I think are very, very qualified, and we would likely want them to present to the committee at a later date. Mark Bean and the hospitality group have asked if they can review the 3 qualifying responses. And there was a consensus with Chairman Garrity and Ryan Moore that would be fine if they signed an NDA. So I have asked the county attorney if he could provide that so that they could review the RFP's responses as well, and then come back and have the presentation by the vendors and a discussion and make that decision and move on.
So we have some very good vendors who haven't responded, and they're pretty close on the cost package. But cost package will not be the only factor. It will be who will give us the best bang for our buck. Also, we sent out yesterday, the hospitality group asked if they could make some recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on Oxy tax funding. We received it over the weekend. It was sent out to committee yesterday. It's for your information only. In the future, we will certainly go through this proposal. Well, their summation of how Oxy tax should be spent and distributed. We'll go through it in a later. I've had a conversation with Mark on some of the things in here, and he already made one revision to it yesterday afternoon, but there's good information in here. There's a lot of things we're already doing. And I'll ask that you take your time to look at that. If we have any time on June 3rd to go through it, we will, but if we don't, we'll just hold it on for a little bit. I just don't want to linger too long. So we should get back to the hospitality group. Chairwoman Seibert.
Thank you, Chairman Garrity. It's my hope that on June 3rd at that additional OCTAX and tourism meeting that you will be able to spend some significant time talking about their suggestions when you review your suggestions to the OCTAX and scoring sheet. Just as a reminder, those were passed by resolution. So to change how we score or how we take applications, it really should be a change that's made by the committee and then passed by the board. And that also helps as we add in that application checklist and helpful hints on how to apply. So I'm hopeful that everyone's coming to the table at that second meeting for draft number 3, really is what technically it is, to have some more discussion and a redline version of the scoring and the application. On that note, I know a lot of people listen to this meeting, and I'm hopeful that throughout our hospitality family here in Warren County, that we are reaching out to public health as well. Kristen came on board to help both the county administrator and the tourism department in a dual function. One of those ways that we can help as a community is to also take advantage of what Janelle Jones and her office are offering to go out to businesses to provide vaccinations. So if you are part of this call and you're listening, please reach out to Kristen and Janelle and have that coordination so that they can set up a time. It's a wonderful service that we're offering here in Warren County, and I think quite unique to get out there and try to offer vaccinations for as many people as we can in your businesses. So I think that's important to our hospitality group here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Pending items, we have a lot of pending items, and they're still going to be pending till we meet on the 3rd. I will open up the floor to Gina Metzger. Do you have anything to offer today? No. Okay. Anybody else on the committee got anything? Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have 2 things and I'll be quick.
Sure.
One of the things that I've been thinking about for the last number of months is our relationship with the CVB. And I know that there's a relationship that they have with the Lake George Chamber. Their board is basically from the Lake George Chamber. And I would like to, if I might request to Gina and her team, have a discussion maybe on the June 3rd timeframe about the reason why it needs to be tied to the Lake George Chamber, because I believe it's more effective to be separated from the Lake George Chamber because it is a county-wide. It should be promoting county-wide. I know they do some county-wide work. They've done it in the past. They've done a good job. But I think the board leadership of that would be beneficial for the county to have it separated. Secondly, on the next statement, today, for the first time, when I looked at the financials provided on the spreadsheet by our administrator Moore, I looked at the reserves and I thought there was 600,000 in the reserve because I always assumed that there was $1 million for the treasurer to use. Today, I finally realized that there's $1.6 million at our discretion. And I don't understand what the strategic play is for that. So I would like to also, if not in the June meeting, maybe it's the July meeting or August meeting, a requested discussion about the strategy in terms of what we're doing with that $1.6 million. All right, how much do we need to keep as a reserve? What do we want to use on special occasions? Do we want to replenish that special occasion when we dip into this fund? So I'm looking for a strategy in terms of what we do with that. The discussions we have today and we've had last time are, well, we've got more money. But I'd like to understand what our high level, again, what our high level strategy is for that $1.6 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the committee? Anybody else on the committee? Okay, Supervisor McGowan, last word.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I know we discussed this in the past and before, now that the $1.6 million was passed out there. But I know we've asked in the past that to see a spreadsheet of the money that was left over for the towns and that from their OCTAX money and that. And didn't we ask for that? And was that going to be handed out to us to review? Especially when it comes down to this supplemental.
I don't follow the question.
Well,
there's no money left over from the towns.
Well, I thought we reached out to the towns to get an accountability of the money that they, how they use their OCTAX money. Is that?
That's
am I
correct.
Wording that right? I mean,
we have the numbers for each community, and they are giving, each community is given $30,000 plus the 25%. So that's what they're getting. And last year we were very late at giving the money out. So and there wasn't a lot of events. So yes, we have the accountability, but it's not. I suppose it is leftover funds. Some account for it differently. That's something we need to talk about in the future about spending requirements of the Oxy tax, but that would mean a different change in the law if we did that, because that's sort of like a home rule type thing. Like when we give to the village fiscal year starts in June. So their monies are different monies for them than it is for, say, a town that works on a January to December basis. Yeah. So yeah, we have that. We could certainly make a copy, but that doesn't necessarily mean, as I've been told, certain towns, yes, it looks like we have that money, but we've already committed that. Some people commit it by committee, either in the end of the prior year, they commit it for the upcoming year. Some people give it on a basis of refund. You spend it, we'll pay for it type thing, which I think is a better way of doing it, but not everybody does that. So that will take some internal discussion amongst the supervisors, how we work that out. But we have that number. We can certainly get you a sheet.
Well, yeah, I'd just like to, stay on top of it since we're going to be having all these discussions. Because this year, I have to say, I was quite impressed with how everything was put together. It was a little bit, a lot easier to follow for me. And, this being my third year in going through this, I was a little confused with our administrator's accountability, but it took me a little time but he's awfully smooth at that. But at the end, I think we came up to the good figure. But no, I just want to thank everybody for the time that they put in. And really, these sheets of really, and the applications, especially the old one, was really awesome for someone like me to follow. So thank you.
We'll call those our sheets of integrity.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do a 15-minute. We have to wait for any public comment, correct? Mr. Lehman?
Hi, Supervisor Gary. Yes, we do have one public comment from Kelly Hatton, who writes, I think the forum might be daunting to some who do not have experience. And I would suggest there be a group of mentors that could provide some help and guidance. That's the only comment we have right now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn by Supervisor Beatty. Do we have a second? Supervisor Molino. Thank you.